Okay, let's see. Oops. Are you able to share my screen yet?
Michelle, is your share button working?
Yeah, let's go back to it. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Okay. Share. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Let me see. Share. There we go. Okay. Okay, there we go, guys. Okay, I apologize for that. Okay. So today we're going to talk about special education. We'll be together for 45 minutes. And I want to start by telling you that, as I mentioned, we're Family Resource Center on Disabilities. We're a parent training and information center. And what we do is we help you navigate the special education system. Also, we provide services in the languages that the parent needs. So depending on what language you need, we can provide services in those languages in a variety of different ways. So Family Resource Center helps you learn about your special education rights, understand IDEA. Our goal is to help you make informed decisions with the special education system, as well as if you suspect your child may have some challenges. Our goal is to help you obtain, to work with your IEP, but also to work on the relationship and be mindful as you go into the special education process. So our goal is to help you obtain appropriate services for your child, learning about early intervention and transition services, to have an effective change in your child's school, and to learn about what your child may need to become independent. So the focus is on IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It's the federal law that governs the Children with Disabilities Act. It helps children have access to specialized and structuralized instruction and individualized services and supports they need to ensure they have a free, appropriate public education. So the 6 principles idea that we're going to focus on today is our free, appropriate public education, which is to ensure that our children have access to appropriate education along with their non-disabled peers that's equivalent, appropriate evaluations, individual education programs, which is the IEP, that our children are in the least restrictive environment, parenting and student participation in decision-making. Of course, parents are equal, and our procedural safeguards. So these are the 6 topics we're going to go through today. A free, appropriate public education. So FAPE means it's going to be no cost for parents. It's designed, the FAPE means the design is to meet the unique needs of each individual child. It's provided according to the written individualized plan, which is that IEP. And it applies to what we cover, the Parent Center covers 0 through 26, but we're talking about today is FAPE, which applies to preschool through high school, age 3 through the day before their 22nd birthday. So for a parent, basically what you want to keep in mind, to keep it very simple, is it's based on the unique needs of your child. Also, it's what's appropriate. And I would say for everybody today, the key word for you is appropriate. So we want to make sure when we think about our children going into special education, we're getting services, what's appropriate for that unique child. So the special education program must be designed for a student with special education needs to have access to the general education curriculum in the general education. So it's very important when you think about the design for the special education program that you have your children are getting access to that general education curriculum. Included in that are related services and supports for extracurricular activities. So we're going to cover appropriate evaluations. And I'm going through this, but also keep in mind, if you guys have any questions, you can write them in the chat. And also, if you have any questions, you always feel free to call us. We service the 8 counties around the Chicago metro area, but also we have another parent center downstate. So if you have any questions, whether your child has a disability, you are navigating the system, anywhere in the state, there is a parent center that will be able to help you navigate that. And as a reminder, as we go forward, the Parent Center staff are parents of kids with disabilities. So we've been through the situation that most of our parents are going through. Also keep in mind, our goal is to ensure that you, we're meeting where you're at. And also our goal is to empower you as you navigate through this process. So I know I mentioned that because we're going through this pretty fast because we only have 45 minutes today. And I just want to make sure we're covering quite a few things and also have opportunity for you guys to ask any questions. So we want to make sure as we go through the special education process that we suspect that there's an issue. We know that our children have access to FAPE, which I mentioned earlier, which is free appropriate public education. In that process, a student, as we go through the special education process, the student must be evaluated prior to get the provision of special education services. So basically, before you get any special education services, we need to first determine, is the student an eligible child with a disability according to IDEA, which is the law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We need to first determine, are they qualified under IDEA? So once we figure out if they're qualified, then we determine the educational needs of the student. And that's where we go back to the free appropriate public education. We are making sure that this child is getting what they need for their development. So parents must give informed consent for evaluations and for services. A student must be evaluated in all areas of suspected evaluation. And the evaluation should include a variety of tools and strategies to gather that information. It just should never be based on just one measure. And I want parents to keep in mind that oftentimes the schools are always gathering data. So they're always gathering data. And so it's just an additional process. They have the data they're gathering, but they may have to do a psych eval, or maybe they need to do a variety of different evaluations. And an evaluation must be conducted within 60 school days of a parent giving consent. So I want to remind everybody that just saying, please evaluate my child, or saying anything verbally doesn't necessarily constitute consent. So it's very important that when you give consent, you're signing the paperwork. So a comprehensive reevaluation must be conducted every 3 years, unless both the parent and the school agrees that it's not necessary. So during the special education process, we're going to do the evaluation, but also after that first evaluation, if you are a parent that already has a child with an IEP, then the reevaluation process under IDEA is every 3 years. But a reevaluation can also occur if you request it. So if something changes, and I know for a lot of us, we're in a very different situation now with everything being virtual, and so our kids are changing. Many things have happened. I just want to assure you that it's always okay for a parent to request a reevaluation on something specific if something has changed. And I see this happen a lot with younger children. I would encourage you, if you do that request, make sure you put it in writing. And parents also have a right to request an independent educational evaluation at public expense. And what this is as a parent, if you get that evaluation and you don't agree with that evaluation, you can always request an independent evaluation of public expense if you disagree with the school's results. But I would encourage you that if you disagree with the school's results, or even before you go to that stage of, it's always best to get your own evaluation independently if you're able to do that. And calling the Parent Center, we could give you some resources in that as well, some different places. So parents also, like I mentioned, can seek that independent evaluation at their own expense at any time. But it's important to know if you do disagree, obviously you can always request the independent evaluation. So everything that we're discussing leads us to the individual education program, which is the meat of everything. So once we find out that our child is a child that would qualify as a child with a disability, and we go through the process of evaluation. And when we go through the process of evaluation, I also want to remind everybody that the evaluation of your child should be in your native language, the native language, not yours, but the native language of the child. And when you go through the IEP, so now we've decided that this child qualifies for an IEP. This is a written document. In this document is going to be where your services and accommodations are going to be written. So for each child with a disability, the IEP is going to be developed, reviewed. It's going to be revised at least annually by a team. The team includes educators, parents, students whenever appropriate, and others who have knowledge and expertise needed for the development of the child's special education program. Now, on the ISBE's website, there is a special education parents guide. And I would encourage everyone on the call to download the document. It's a pretty big document, but each chapter, it's very simple to read, and we'll tell you in each chapter who should be included. The one thing I do want to tell you, once you go through the IEP, when you're starting the IEP process, so I'm not sure who's all on, I should have kind of asked here. You guys, can you put in the chat box, are most of the people on the call parents that currently have IEPs, or people that are in the process of possibly getting IEPs? Or on anybody? So there's a couple things. So for the IEP, it's important that, as we were talking about, I'm telling you about the 6 principles, but when we're starting this process, before we get to the IEP, if we find out our children qualify, then we have a domain meeting. Okay, so we have Okay, so we have some people in here that already have IEPs. That's good to know, because it's different. So if you're in the process of just getting an IEP, it's gonna look a little different than if you have an IEP. But one of the things that's a little different, if I'm just starting my special education process, then what's going to happen is that first meeting is going to be a domain meeting. So if I suspect my child has a disability, or I have some real concerns that he needs some more support, I'm going to request an evaluation. We're going to end up with a domain meeting. And at the domain meeting, we're going to have different people at that meeting, and we're going to decide as a team, what do we need to evaluate for this child? So that's if your child doesn't have special education services already. For our parents on here that have children that already have IEPs, you've been through that process. So the one thing I want everybody to remember, whether you're new or not new, is that IEP meeting notice. The meeting notice, which is your 10-day notice, is one of the most important things that you're going to see, and that we need to think about with the IEP program, because I want you to look at that notice and look who's all on that IEP notice. That's who's, you and the school have agreed that these are the people that are going to be at that meeting. And that's what this is discussing. So you and the school have decided that you're going to have certain people at the meeting, whether it's a nurse maybe, or maybe you need the psychologist there, or a physical therapist. Those people for the meeting will be listed on the meeting notice. If there's somebody listed on the meeting notice or not listed, reach out to the school have that conversation, but I will let you know that if they're not on the notice, then it's also okay to say, we need to reschedule this meeting because it's not on the notice. But if anything that you say verbally, I want to encourage you to put into writing. Let's see. Also, as a parent, I would encourage everyone to not go to the IEP meeting alone. I want to make sure that you bring somebody to that IEP meeting. And that could be somebody that needs to take notes for you. It could be somebody that is also an expert with your child, because you, parent, are the expert of your child. You are the expert. You are the one consistent thing throughout the child's life. So you obviously are the expert, but bringing support is very important. But when you bring that support, I also want you to remember that the school gives you a 10-day notice and they let you know who is going to be at that meeting. So I encourage you to give notice to the school to let them know who's going to be at the meeting that you're bringing to the meeting as well, as a courtesy. So what is an IEP? An IEP is the individual education program. Each child who qualifies for special education must have one. It's a written document. Parents must be involved. Parents also, there's something called a parent input statement that is written that you can bring to the IEP meeting. If you don't bring it, they normally write it in the IEP. It's developed by the IEP team. You are part of that team. And it's a legal binding document. Parents have a right to a qualified interpreter. And parents have a right to request that that interpreter serve no other role in that IEP meeting. So with the IEP, the key word is individualized. It is an instructional program designed really without where it's going to be implemented. First, it's the program first, the placement is second. And basically what that means is, what does this child need? So at the IEP meeting, we've seen the evaluation. We've got the evaluations. We've agreed or disagreed. We've came to the conclusion that we now have the child qualifies. And now what does the child need? What services does the child need in order to ensure that they are accessing the general education curriculum and are receiving an appropriate education? So the program is first. What we're putting in the IEP for the needs of the child, that's first. That's the priority. The placement is second. It's very important as parents, because I noticed we have parents on here. Okay, and I'll mention, I see somebody mention the English learners, yes. Let me mention that and then I'll go to the IEP. Someone in our comments mentioned it's important for bilingual parents to know if your child is an English learner, an ESL or bilingual specialist, teacher or administrator must attend the special education meeting, which is correct. Thank you, Barbara, which is correct. So it's important that you know that as well. And also keep in mind that the placement, we're talking about the program is first. So we have the people at the IEP meeting, we're working on the plan. Program is first, placement is second. So often we get parents that that hear about a school and they're like, I want my kid to go to that school, without considering that school, even though a school may be appropriate for the children that are there, it may not be appropriate for your child. That's why it's important to work with your team on the services, the accommodations, the modifications that are appropriate for your child. On that IEP, so you're working on the services, who's going to provide those services? That needs to be written in the IEP. When would those services start? Where are we going to provide them? How long are they going to be provided? And how long will they continue to be provided? So we want to just make sure that we have measurable goals in that IEP. And these are some things to think about. So the parents and the students also need to be involved with the development and revision. So remember that we're going to by law, the IP must be renewed every year. It has to have measurable goals. They need to be meaningful. And it's important that you remember that even if the goals are there, you could have goals in the IP, but those, like any human being, our kids, especially our young kids are always changing and developing. So those goals may need to be updated. So it's okay to ask for a new IP meeting. And I would encourage you, when you do that, to put it in writing and indicate why you are requesting that new IP meeting. Although the IP meeting is required by law once a year, you can request it at any time. I will also say that the school can deny it. But if you have goals and you feel like the child is growing and changing, it's very realistic that to request a new IP meeting to work on those goals. That's why I would encourage you to put it in writing why you're requesting an IP meeting, and then that you're requesting an IP meeting, and then why are you requesting an IP meeting. So the IP must have the strengths of the child, the parent's concern. So the parent's concern, the results of the initial evaluation or the most recent reevaluation, the academic development and functional needs of the child. And I will say this with these reevaluations, especially right now, I know they're recording this, but I just want to bring this to parents. Right now, we are in such a different climate and we're all doing a lot of new things. So those reevaluations, I want to make sure you guys remember that those reevaluations, that you want to make sure that you know who's doing these reevaluations. Is your child getting a new reevaluation? Who's doing the evaluations, or are they just doing a record review as a reevaluation? You need to make sure that you know that, because by law, every 3 years, they're entitled to a new reevaluation. Okay, so that's by law, but keep in mind, you can request any type of evaluation at any time. So for example, if I see we have a lot of parents on here that have kids with IPs. So if you're a parent with a kid with an IP and you decide, you know what, I think that my son maybe could use some assistive technology. Although, to be honest, I know all of our kids are using assistive technology now, but maybe they need a type of technology, a different type of technology than they're currently using. If you would like to request, for example, an assistive technology evaluation, then you can put that request in writing, and that would be a new evaluation that you could request at any time. So the IP, we want to make sure the strengths of the child, the concerns, the evaluations, also the academic and functional goals that your child needs to make progress. We want to make sure that the whole goal of what we want to do is make sure our children have access to the general education curriculum. What do our children need in order to receive an education equal to their non-disabled peers? So what services and accommodations do they need in order to be in that classroom or that environment to ensure they're involved with that general education curriculum? And what's that? So I want to answer a couple as we go along. I want to answer a couple of the comments in the chat, questions in the chat. So Bertha says, let's see, let's go back a little bit. Hold on. I know someone had a concern with epilepsy. Let's see. Okay, hold on. So someone asked, is a 504 considered for special education epilepsy? Specifically speaking. So absolutely, when we're talking about special education, we're specifically talking about IDEA today, but when we're talking about special education, that includes Section 504. So Section 504 is civil rights legislation. And kind of the simple way to explain it to people is the 504 civil rights legislation, and it's to create obviously a level playing ground. And you will find, I will say, you will find that some schools use the same documents, but it doesn't have it kind of doesn't have exactly the same teeth. But what we're finding, especially in the environment nowadays, with a 504 plan, absolutely, traditionally, like if I have a child that has maybe diabetes, or maybe they just use a wheelchair and they don't need anything else. We often see kids, let's say I'm in a wheelchair, maybe I don't need any academic support, then you may see a 504 for different accommodations and modifications for me. Or if maybe all I need is nursing services, you may find that. So the difference really is those qualifying disabilities, those 13 disabilities. The 504, as I mentioned, is civil rights legislation. And Olga, I'm going to encourage you to call us and we can get more in detail about that. Someone asked, what factors should I consider to evaluate my child's goals are appropriate? So as a parent, the factors, it's going to depend on each child, I will say. And I'll be honest with you on this format, we can't cover those. Alan, I would also encourage you to call me, but I would also say this, is that you want to ensure, you're the expert on your child, right? You're the expert on your child. I always would encourage you, your children at some point have got medical evaluations. I would encourage you to look at those evaluations. Also, if you haven't looked at the school's evaluation, look at those evaluations, because your goal is to ensure that they're receiving appropriate education and they have access to that curriculum. And as a parent, obviously we're not educators, we're not going to be experts on the curriculum, but the issue, kind of, if we go back, the issue is what are their needs and how do we bridge that gap? So I'll say, Alan, definitely I want you to give us a call at Family Resource Center on Disabilities. And I will say, Elizabeth put that information in, it's on the PowerPoint for you guys to have it, and a lot of additional information, but also Elizabeth put our information in the chat. Can an entire IEP draft be provided to parents in Spanish as well as the official ones when finalized for Spanish speaking parents? So I will say, yeah, should they by IDEA? Yeah, technically they should by IDEA. But I will say this, that what we've experienced in the past in a couple, I service the Chicagoland area, the counties around Chicago. And what we've experienced in the past were our parents in the past were getting their IEPs in Spanish, and we're having a bit of a challenge currently in that area. But absolutely, and I will say we obviously made progress. Remember when I mentioned earlier that you can have a qualified interpreter at your meeting, as well as an interpreter should not do any other job. So that's progress. We were always under IDEA. It said we should have an interpreter, but there was not information about it being qualified. So we've made progress. I will say that still is a bit of a challenge though. But Bertha, we have got it, working with the Parent Center, we have got it translated for parents that needed it. And also we have not only got it for parents that need it, but also sometimes if we can't do that, if the schools are not willing to do that, what we've done is we have also got someone to help us to sit down and go over it with the family. So does virtual school affect IEPs? So our experience has been, I will say, at the beginning of this whole situation that we're all in, this pandemic, it seemed our experience, and keep in mind, I'm going to tell you guys at the Parent Center, when people call us, people are not calling us because they're happy. People are calling us because they're frustrated and have done everything they can. And don't mistake me, I want you to call me before you're frustrated, but traditionally that's what happens. So we found at the beginning of this pandemic that everybody was very collaborative, everybody was trying their best, but we went further in the pandemic, we have found that, yeah, virtual school has absolutely affected the IEP, and we have had significant challenges with that for families, and we're working through those. And here's the thing, we work with families individually. So yes, absolutely, the law says something, but the law says what's allowed, but on the street, so to speak, what actually happens may look different. Let's see. Elizabeth reminds us that no other role means that the interpreter only plays and participates in the meeting as the interpreter, not in any other role as teacher. So Elizabeth mentions that in the chat, that when I mentioned no other role, in the past, before that law was in place, what we would see is there might be a janitor that speaks, but whatever language it may be. There might be a janitor that speaks the parent's language. And obviously, janitor, very important job, very hard job, but he might not be an expert in special education. But the school would, in the past, would bring him in to interpret for the family. And that was a very, very real concern because special education is so specialized, and there could be a misinterpretation, but also there could be just maybe not all the information because he actually has another role. He has a job there. So, you know, they're not coming in as advocates, so to speak. So it's very important that what Elizabeth mentions, no other role, means they are coming in as an interpreter only for you, the parent. Nobody else. They're playing no other role. They are there to interpret the information. And that's it. Elizabeth, can you resend our contact information in the chat?
Yep, I just did that. And then also there was a question that was in Spanish that may have overlooked. Do you mind if I ask you that question?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So Maria de Jesus, she says she's asking in you know, during the pandemic, you know, a lot of the students, you know, the specialized services kind of, you know, weren't implemented as they were prior to that. So now that that has happened, is there any extra support for parents who, you know, for their, you know, pandemic?
Yes. So, okay, so I'm gonna try to can you respond also back to her in Spanish in the box for us too?
Sure.
Okay, so this is a challenging situation. It's a challenging situation. So overall, is there a blanket more accommodations? We have not seen that, no. So it's a really great question because it's the importance of keeping data. It's very important to keep data. So we can work with her individually. Number one, anybody that has this challenge, and it's more of an individual. Every situation is so different. So there's no blanket statement. But we have found, though, is that there's a gap during the pandemic in a lot of services that were on that IP. Parents may not have known. I know it's been overwhelming. Everybody is in distress. So people might not have known. And a lot of parents are now just starting to realize, oh, this didn't happen or that didn't happen. So it's very important, obviously, to document this information. So whatever you feel like, okay, this didn't happen, let's document it. And when I say document it, I mean for you, let's document it. Then let's figure out what did happen. And now we've got to bridge that gap, and we could work with you on that. So one of the things that under IDEA, we have dispute resolution. And under IDEA, there's something called compensatory services. Compensatory services are providing services that our child were missing for some other reason. And we often see compensatory service mostly in dispute resolution due process. But, you know, we are not exactly sure what this is going to look like just yet after this pandemic. So here's the thing. I would encourage her to call us. And specifically, Elizabeth, I would encourage her to call me and you. You can translate for me. And we could work through that situation with her. But I know a lot of families have that. So we do, just so everybody knows, on staff, we have French, Spanish, and Arabic speaking staff. If you speak any other language, we usually use a language line. If for some reason, I know some languages out there are, you know, we've had a challenge with some languages because there are not as many people that speak them. But our goal is, if we can't use a language line, we try to find community resources in the community that will volunteer and help us, or sometimes we have to pay for that if we have the funding for that. Also, you know, our goal is whatever language you speak, our goal is to help you navigate that. But also we're a network of 106 parent centers around the country. So around the country, we have so many resources in so many different languages. So there may already be resources out there in the language that you need that we just need to get to you. So I just want you to keep that in mind. So Elizabeth, are you able to just kind of give her the brief on that, but also have her call us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maria,
And then,
I'm going to send her a private chat.
okay, thank you. And then, so yes, we do. Okay, so I'm going through the chat. Does your organization provide training workshops or other activities for professionals, volunteers who are interested in working in the field? Yes, we do. And I would encourage you to email me. And Elizabeth, can you put my email in the chat?
Yes.
Yeah. And then it's really important if you could put on the subject line, maybe bilingual summit, so I know where we chatted at. We do provide trainings and workshops and other activities. So if we're on social media, Facebook, also our website. Also, we send out an email, and we send out an email for our workshops and trainings. And so right now, everything's virtual. Traditionally, what we had done is obviously go in the community. We service 8 counties around the Chicago metro area. We go in the community. We've been doing many virtual. And then also what we also do is we do information and referral. So basically we're doing trainings, but we're bringing other organizations in that will benefit our parents. We're bringing them in to do webinars and different trainings. Also, if we don't have the answer to your question, we're going to help you find it. Our goal is to help you navigate this system and to empower you. So we're not going to have every answer on every single disability. Our focus is IDEA. Our focus is special education law. And our focus is helping you learn how to communicate through this system, because we're the one consistent thing. And sometimes these situations are very frustrating. Our goal is to help you navigate through that so you're mindful and we can build relationships. But also, if you have a question or you're trying to find something for your child with disability, we'll help navigate through that. We'll help you find that information, even if we don't have that. But normally that's something that we do on a regular basis. So we can help you navigate through that. But yes, absolutely, we have trainings. And I will say this too, you guys, if you're a parent group or a parent group of school, all you have to do is request training. Our trainings are free. If you're a parent group, we request you have at least 10 parents. Absolutely. So, and I guess now with being virtual, that could be a special Zoom meeting with just your parents. Maybe it's your parent group. Okay, let's see. So Olga, give me a call about that. The social emotional learning, because the functional behavioral plan. So when we talk about the IEP, I'm gonna kind of skim through. You guys will have this. We want to make sure there's SMART goals, but kind of to reference Olga's concern, because we only have a couple more minutes, is that not filled on the 504. One of the things, the 50, yeah, Olga, I would say call me on that, because the social emotional goals we would normally see on the IEP, what she brings up is if on the IEP, if let's say we have a kid with behavioral problems, they do something called a functional behavioral analysis. We put in social emotional goals, potentially, or whatever the child needs, which those are additional trainings that we do. Maria, so Olga, I want you to give us a call so we can access an interpreter through your office for parents. So yeah, Maria, if you have parents, so we would not do an interpreter for a school. So, but if you have parents, our goal, so we're a federal grant, our goal is to meet the needs of our families. So if you have a parent, so as I mentioned, we have those languages on staff, but if you have a parent that has a different language and needs support from a parent center for special education, absolutely, our goal is to meet those needs, whether, it's deaf, blind, whatever it is, whatever, our goal is to meet those needs. And we have money in the budget to do that work. And then if we run out of money, then we're asking other people to help support us. So absolutely, I want to encourage you, if you have those families. Here's the thing, Elizabeth, put my, I would say, Elizabeth, put my, make sure my email is in the chat. And then again, put that subject line, especially if you're an educator, let us know that you're sending it over, sending a parent over to me. So one of the things we don't do if you're working at the schools is we don't take, we won't talk to you about a parent. So we don't do release of information. We don't do third party. We're speaking directly with the parent. Our goal is to support the parent, but if you're an educator or you work at a school, feel ensured that you're dealing with parents of kids with disabilities. And our goal is we all have to work through this and navigate through this together. So our goal is to ensure and support that process. How to become a Spanish interpreter, sorry for the top. So Olga, can you respond to that? I'm sorry, can you respond to that question, Elizabeth? Yep, I can show the smart. And did you guys should have got the PowerPoint. Okay, so let's see. So here's the thing with these goals, right? So you want to make sure that they're measurable. You want to make sure that, and that's kind of the things we were talking about earlier. So I need to make sure you guys get a copy of this PowerPoint. And I thought that they were sending this out to you guys. So, let's see. We have 29 participants.
I can make sure that it gets sent out.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, let me see. Hold on. Okay. Oops, let's see, hold on. So we want to make sure that it's realistic. So if you get assistive technology, and if your child you get evaluated for assistive technology, for example, and your child doesn't know how to use it,
Michelle, you're on mute.
okay, sorry guys. Okay. I was on mute. Let me go back to my share. Okay, let's see. There we go. Okay, somebody said, okay, can you guys hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, just making sure. Thanks. Okay, so I was using an example just of assistive technology. If you get something, how do we use it? Somebody needs to teach us how to use it. So you just want to make sure whatever goals you have are really SMART goals, time limited, and measurable, very specific, where it's going to be done, who's going to do it. And those are kind of the goals we went over. We'll make sure you guys get a copy of the PowerPoint. And then also we'll send a couple of resources. So I'm just kind of looking at both. Olga, do you see the presentation now?
I just added the PowerPoint into the chat for people to download because I'm not sure if they were able to keep track who signed up for which one, because I think people were just allowed to pick. And
Gotcha.
I just put it in there in case we get disconnected. But if you have the chance to enter your email in the chat, then I will save it and then send out any additional information.
Right. And if you're on the phone and you can't put your email in the chat, so if you're on the phone and you can't put your email in the chat, we're at frcd.org, frcd.org. You can always call us or send us an email. So the SMART goals, right? And it's, thank you, Elizabeth, for doing that. We only have a couple more minutes. Well, actually, we should be over, but I just want a couple things really quick is least restrictive environment. Remember when we were talking about our kids being with their non-disabled peers? That's the least restrictive environment. Special education is not a place, it's a set of services. We will help you navigate through this. So we didn't have enough time to go through everything, but those 6 topics: FAPE, free appropriate public education, appropriate evaluations, your IEP, the least restrictive environment. A parent is an equal partner in the process. You're an equal partner. You should participate. You may not feel like an equal partner, but you are. We're here to support you to be that equal partner. Also, procedural safeguards. All these are different topics that we also have additional training in. So also I see we have like a director of EL services at a school. If you need services for your families, you want to do a training, it's more specific, you know the needs of your population. So we can accommodate what the needs are of that specific population. Our goal is to support, empower, and we know everybody is in, it's a tough time for everybody. And so if our families that maybe don't speak English, it could be even a bigger challenge. So we want to just make sure we're here to support them in the way that they need to be supported regarding special education, and then making sure we're all collaborating together to ensure that child is receiving what they need. So that's our goal. We are here for our parents, for our educators. If you need our support, let us know. Will any of your workshops recordings be available for us to view at a later time? I was interested in attending with oh, got you. Okay. So they will, Ms. Ramirez, they will. Thank you for that. Let's see. Yes, we cover Lake County, Cook, Kane. We cover the 8 counties around Chicago, but Lake, Cook, Kane, Kendall, Will. Let's see. Lake, Cook, Kane, Kendall, Will, Grundy. What am I missing? 2, 3, 4.
I put them in there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Absolutely. And we know, keep in mind, I know for some of you guys, especially if you're at the schools, you may have parents that are people in person. I know every place doesn't have that, but we're certainly willing, if you're a situation where people are coming back in person, we're certainly willing to come back in person and work with your families. So I know every situation is different, and that's why I say call us and we can accommodate what the needs of our parents are. And then if you're a parent that's going through this process, or if you're a parent on this call, please share information with other parents, because the one thing about us, we're a small nonprofit, we're a network of 106 around the country. We work with the Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, and we're a huge network, but most of the time people don't hear about us unless it's word of mouth from parent to parent. So you guys were 3 minutes over. I want to thank everybody for being on the call with us today. I really appreciate it. And then also please keep in touch. And Elizabeth put the PowerPoint in the session, in the conference for us. So let's see, we do have a couple. I'm gonna try to answer that question. As a paraprofessional, who can I forward this information to without overstepping? I would say, as great question. And Olga, thank you for not overstepping, because it is such a critical time. But I would say your case manager, your PTA, your LSC, whatever parent, you case managers, yes, but whatever parent leadership group you have at your school, I would encourage you to share that with them. Oh, and then also the sessions, all sessions will be available and recorded for view at a later time. So thank everybody for joining. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see.
Do we get the survey here for showing?
Thank you so much.
Let's see. Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. And keep in touch.